What's up, guys? Thank you for tuning in to the Uncommon Mindset podcast. Today, I'm joined by a very special guest. Today, I'm joined by Shawn Baker. I'll just give you a brief background on who Shawn is. Shawn is a lifelong multisport elite level athlete and a medical doctor who served as a combat trauma surgeon and a chief of orthopedics while deployed to Afghanistan with the United States Air Force. His focus in recent years has been on using nutrition as a tool for health, performance, and overall well-being. Through his carnivore training system and private consulting work, he has inspired countless thousands of others, including Joe Rogan and Jordan Peterson, to challenge a highly flawed nutritional paradigm and to opt for a carnivorous lifestyle instead. He's also the author of The Carnivore Diet, and what a huge honor it is to have you on the podcast today, Shawn.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. Looking forward to the conversation.
No worries, no, thank you. So I always start off by asking my guests, what was your upbringing like?
Well, my upbringing was, I was actually born over in Europe, in Germany. My dad was a military guy, and for initially, and then this when I was a very small child. Then we moved around quite a bit throughout different parts of the United States. I would say, just kind of a middle class upbringing. Went to a public school. Um, had a pretty standard childhood diet. Grew up in the 1970s. Basically I was born in 1967, so I kind of grew up through the 1970s for the most part. Um, got interested in sports when I was about 14. Got interested in kind of lifting weights and that type of stuff, and that was nothing. I don't think my upbringing was anything particularly unusual. Pretty standard upbringing, I suppose.
Yeah. What made you actually get into, like diet and, the carnivore diet in particular?
Yeah, that was a obviously my background as a physician, as an orthopedic surgeon, and an athlete. I got probably to about 42, 43 years of age, and I started to see that my health was starting to decline. I'd seen some of the things that uh, I saw all the time as a physician taking care of patients. Sore joints and uh, problems with blood pressure and so on and so forth. Developing metabolic syndrome, despite, quite honestly, a lot of high level training. I was still very competitive as an athlete, winning world championships, even at my age. And I decided to, start really delving into nutrition or diving into nutrition, and, just started different on a path of, different dietary strategies to first to get to lose weight, to get leaner. I was competing as a Highland Games athlete, and so in Wales, I know Scotland is obviously a big place where the Highland Games are done, but I'm sure you've been exposed to them in Wales. And I was a world champion at the Highland Games as a masters athlete. I was 20 stone, to put it in terms that you guys may be using over there. I don't know, it's 130 kilos or something like that. And I didn't want to be that heavy anymore. And so I went on a kind of a low fat, high vegetable, lean protein diet. I was able to lose I lost about 50 pounds in about 3 months, and, uh, got lean and was miserable. Was literally hungry all the time, irritated. The nurses at the hospital said they much preferred the more rotund Dr. Baker, because I was a nicer guy. I was kind of just a bit of an ass when I was, not eating enough food, basically, and too little fat. And so
Yeah.
I transitioned into more of a meat-based, kind of more of a paleo diet for a year or two. Then went on to discover a low carbohydrate diet. Went on a ketogenic diet for a couple of years, and then I found my way to this carnivore diet, and I've really been on that since for the last 5 years. I mean, I remember when I first went on the carnivore diet shortly before my 50th birthday. It was in 2016, so nearly 5 years ago. Um, I was just amazed that I had these joint aches and pains that have been with me my whole life. And as an orthopedic surgeon, I kind of come to expect with aging, you have arthritis and musculoskeletal injuries, and those just all went away. It was kind of very surprising to me, and I had sort of because I had tried everything. I remember I had tendonitis in my right quadriceps. It had been there for at least a decade. I remember I was squatting, doing a 500-pound squat, and I felt a little bit of a pull in my knee, and it bothered me for 10 years since then. And that literally got better within about 2 weeks. And then within about 2 months, I saw tremendous improvements in my strength and athletic performance. And within 6 months, I was setting world records on this concept too, rowing device. And so I just have been on that now for, like I said, almost 5 years.
Well, you mentioned there that you've done other diets like the paleo, the keto diet. Did you see any benefits from doing them, or is the most benefits that you've seen by doing the carnivore diet?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly saw benefits in regard to, I think, where I was initially, I was eating just a lot of food, a lot of calories. It wasn't necessarily what people consider a particularly junk food diet. I mean, there's a lot of whole natural foods in my other diet before as an athlete, but I was just eating a lot of it. And, when I went on a paleo diet, it was just more sustainable than I couldn't do the low fat thing. I just found it unsustainable for me. I just did not feel good that way. So I felt better, including more fat in the diet. I found that when I went on a ketogenic diet, it was a shift in metabolism. It was one of those things where appetite became regulated differently. It was one of those things where I didn't need to eat every 3 or 4 hours. I felt I could eat once a day, twice a day, and I was fine. And I think that was a big shift. And then with the carnivore diet, it was all of that plus just like every benefit I had gotten from any other diet, I saw that on the carnivore diet, but amplified, doubled or tripled or something along those lines. So it was just not that, I think at the end of the day, and one of the things I think most people would agree with is the ultra processed foods that has made its way into pretty much every part of the world and through most of our food supply is just horrible for us. And any diet that excludes that is going to generally be a net positive. And then then you start to look at, are there other things you can do to make it even better?
Yeah. So you basically came across the carnivore diet by doing trials then. Did you do any like research into it or anything like that? Or was there any research into it at all?
There's a small amount of research that existed. There's actually more being done right now as we speak. Several studies are in the works, and a few have been published, in the last few years. But I really came across a group of people that have been doing it for some 5 years, some 10 years, some even as close to 20 years. Just observing them and just kind of talking with them, interacting with them. I did that for about a year before I actually jumped in myself. Some of the research, there's a study back. There's 6 studies that came back from almost, the 1920s, which is nearly 100 years ago,
Hmm.
looking at this, Vilmar Stefansson and Carson Anderson, in Bellevue Hospital in New York, did a carnivore diet for a year, basically. And they were fine. They were totally fine. No deficiencies developed. They felt great. There was no issues with that. So that was documented in the literature. There's been case reports in the literature. There's a European group out of Hungary that's done several case reports on different disease states, cancer, Crohn's disease, so on and so forth, using basically this strategy. Many physicians over the years have used carnivore diets. I wrote a book called The Carnivore Diet, but I talk about the history of it. It's not like I invented this or was the first person to look into this, but so it's been, even back as far as the 1700s, there was a Scottish surgeon, I forget his name right now, but he was using this for diabetics, back as far as, 1700. So we're looking at, 300 plus years ago. So, yeah, there's some history behind this for sure. And there's more, today, probably more people have tried it than probably at any point in history, or at least in history. Not prehistory was probably a different story. Probably, prehistorically, people eating an animal-based diet would have been pretty routine, and depending on what part of the world you're in, and we still see isolated indigenous pockets of people in the polar or circumpolar regions where, animal food is pretty much the only thing they have access to. But I would argue that, looking back at our distant ancestors, that meat-based diets were pretty common. But as far as the historical population, when we started writing things down, this probably is the most time in the world where more people are doing this. Now we have tens of thousands of people that are doing this diet. And surprise, surprise, they're doing well. They're healthy, they're feeling better, they're getting off medications, they're losing weight, they're seeing inflammation go away, they're seeing mental health improve, they're seeing autoimmune diseases go away, on and on and on. So it's kind of a neat experiment.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. Yeah. I saw that obviously Joe Rogan's on the, well, he done the diet for a month, right? And
He's done it for several months now. He messages me from time to time, and
Mhm.
I know he did it last August. He did it or last January. He did it this August, and he did it again this January. So he's definitely in the camp of. I think he's pretty pro carnivore at this point. And he realizes, and he's told me privately that this is the best he's ever felt in his life is when he does that. So I think
Yeah.
he realizes the benefit of it.
No, of course, yeah. So my next question was, obviously there's benefits to it. Is there any negatives? Because I saw that he went through a stage where he went through like diarrhea. Is there any like negatives that's around
Yeah, I
that?
mean, well, there's certainly a transition time. Your gastrointestinal system takes, a period of days to a few weeks or sometimes a month or two to make a transition. There's electrolyte shifts, there's fluid shifts that are happening, there's changes in fuel sources you're using. You're kind of leaning more on fats than you're on glucose.
Mhm.
All those things are going on. I mean, there's stigma around it. Obviously, you've got to deal with the hassle of people, claiming you're some evil person because you eat meat, or you're destroying the planet, or you're going to have, you listen to all the doomsayers that are talking about, well, you're definitely going to have heart disease, you're definitely going to have cancer, whatever, diabetes, whatever, all these sort of things. I think I think the more realistic negative things are really the social um, pressures that people, or the sort of misconceptions people have around meat eating, based on, about 50 years of nonstop, continuous, basically propaganda, which is based in more, I think, this desire to sell cheap alternatives than actual real valid scientific data.
Yeah. Um, you know, I've watched documentaries such as like What the Health and stuff like that, where these vegans, they say that, being vegan is the best way to go. Do you do you think that there is a possibility that not eating meat could also be beneficial, like going full vegan? Or are you like just in the mind that you have to eat meat and that's the best way to go ahead?
Well, I mean, I think there's better and best, and I think, can be going on a vegan diet relative to a standard Western diet be healthy? Sure, it can be. Um, you're going to run into obviously, you're going to run into some issues with nutrition. You have to supplement a vegan diet. I don't think even vegan proponents will disagree with that. Vitamin B12, and there are other ones out there that are more difficult to get, and some that are conditionally beneficial. And there's things we don't even know about yet. It's this thing with choline, that's not even on the vegan radar until a few years ago, when they started saying, well, there's these issues with choline deficiencies. It's hard to get choline on a plant-based diet. And so it's going to be, what's the next supplement you got to take? What's the next supplement you got to take? And we continue to see recent studies showing increased fracture risk, bone health problems with vegan diets. And you see concrete examples of that all the time. You see Christy Brinkley and Michelle Pfeiffer and, Simon Cowell and Brooke Shields, all these people falling and breaking their bones, shattering them,
Mhm.
with low energy falls, mostly in younger people, where they shouldn't be experiencing bone breaks at that age. And so I think there's some definite problems and holes with the vegan diet. I don't know that you can say one diet is the absolute best diet. I don't think we just don't have the data to make those decisions, or to make those proclamations. And I don't think we ever will. I'm not going to say a carnivore diet is the best diet for everybody on the planet. I'm not going to say it's going to make you live longer. It's going to make you not have disease. What I will say is that I see people go on a carnivore diet and improve their health significantly. And I think that's as good as we can realistically do. Anybody that's trying to tell you you're going to live to 100, ask them for a money back guarantee. Ask them to show the results, because they can't, because it doesn't exist at this point. And so I am a big proponent of getting people today where they are. If you're obese or diabetic or depressed, can we fix you? Can we change those things? in a short term. And I'm not worried about what you're going to die of in 50 years. I mean, Ajay, you can be hit by a bus, 5 years from now. So it's kind of a silly argument to make.
Yeah, no, of course. I was watching your podcast with the London Real, and it was an amazing podcast. And he asked you, "Do you ever get any death threats?" And you said that not really. Mostly, a lot of people message you the benefits, right, of what the carnivore diet's done to them rather than the negatives.
Sure. I probably, for every negative message I get from, someone who doesn't like what I do, I probably get 100 or more positive, this is great. You've changed my life. And I don't get death threats. I get unwell wishes, I suppose. We hope you get a heart attack. We can't wait for you to have this or that. I mean, this kind of silliness that I just kind of usually laugh at. And sometimes I'll kind of repost that to demonstrate the silliness that these people have. And I honestly don't wish ill health upon anyone. I hope all people can find what works for them. And, I think the world would be a lot better if we had less disease and illness and people would get along. And I think we would do much more as a society, and we would be able to, this is the thing we talk about sustainability. And there's people making the argument for you should eat this particular way for sustainability. And I think healthy human beings play a big role in environmental sustainability. In the United States, the healthcare system is responsible for about 10% of our greenhouse gas emissions. That's a lot. Animal agriculture is only responsible for 4% of greenhouse gas emissions. Plant agriculture is 5%. Cows are 2%. Remember, the healthcare system is 10%. And so I see people every day that are able to extricate themselves from the healthcare system because they don't need to go anymore. They're not on medications. They don't need to go to the doctor, 7-10 times a year. They don't have to take, to have procedures and these types of things. So that's actually helping the environment. So a healthy population is ultimately what we want as far as sustainability concerns. And so you can't just look at one item in isolation and say, aha, that's a problem on this metric, but then fail to see that it's helping people become healthier, which is actually the bigger picture. And the kind of the analogy with this coronavirus, we're looking at this little thing with this coronavirus where we're ignoring the giant wave of obesity, diabetes, chronic disease. That's really the true issue, and we just kind of sweep that under the rug.
Yeah, no, of course. And you did mention that a big part of the carnivore diet is that it helps mental health, right? I think that's so powerful because a lot of people don't realize that with a diet you can actually, like you said, that you can actually get off medication, right? They just think that the only way they can get better is through that medication. So it is worth trying different diets and seeing what works for you. And I really like that. How if someone came up to you and said, look, I want to start the carnivore diet tomorrow, what would you say to them? Like, what would you recommend them how to start?
Well, I mean, I think it's rather than sort of give an hour-long talk when I think that's what it deserves. I mean, I think you really have to go over why they're doing it, the reasons, what their goals are, what their background is. I mean, that's one of the reasons I started this company platform called meetrx.com. So I just tell people, go there. We've got everything you could possibly need to start. I mean, that's just my blanket answer for anybody asking me how to start. Now, in general terms, I think, most people have to deal with a lot of food relationship issues, food addiction issues. Why do you keep finding yourself eating garbage? What's drawing you there? I think you have to solve that problem. So I think there's ways to do that in the context of how you implement the diet. I think that, you have to sort of align your goals in the right way. There's going to be a little bit different nuances for certain individuals, depending on what their goals are. Like a high level athlete is going to probably do things a little differently than a sedentary person that's trying to get over an autoimmune disease. And so I think there's just differences with that. So I think that's how I generally, like I said, that's why we've got this, like I said, this large community, this large platform with just unlimited resources for people that want to do this diet.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's amazing. What I'll do is I'll leave the link to MeterX down below as well, so people can go and check it out. And I'm sure that a lot of people will be fascinated about this diet because It's not something that, you know, a lot of people, you hear about the keto diet, you hear about the paleo diet, but you don't really hear about the carnivore diet. And it's now only starting to become something huge, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's, like I said, I've been in this for half a decade, and it's definitely growing every year. I mean, it's not going away. We're seeing more people. And the reason is just because it works. I mean, it's like, the cream rises to the top, fad diets come and go. I mean, the whatever juice diet, I mean, most of those things, they come on and they're gone in 6 months, and we've just seen nothing but growth. And I think one of the reasons is just because we just, when the rubber meets the road, we get results. And I think that's what people ultimately see. And I see nothing but growth ahead for this, as far as, the success. And I think many people that go down this low carb avenue eventually kind of land in this carnivorous space. Now, they don't matter to be 100% strict on the diet, but they find that this is, and I think the lesson to be learned is that meat is an essential, critical, not only part of the human diet, but it is extremely healthy. It's an extremely health-giving food, which makes sense. I mean, this is what we've been eating as a human species for, as long as we've been humans. And, depending on what you believe, if you're an evolutionist and you believe we've been go back to 3 million years, and there's evidence that supports that. But regardless, any historical text will describe a lot of meat eating. If you look at any religious text or anything since the beginning of history, the first dietary, I think I saw something from ancient Sumeria that was 3,500 years old, and it was a bunch of recipes. And I think 22 of the 25 recipes were some kind of meat-based stew, So, I mean, it's, we've been eating this for forever, and there's a reason. There's a good reason for that. It's not that meat kills us. I think the problem is this industrial diet that we've adopted has made us extremely unhealthy and maybe unable to process foods that we're normally designed to eat.
Yeah. Do you also do intermittent fasting? Do you incorporate that into your diet?
Not intentionally. I mean, I do what I would call is physiologic fasting, which basically what it means is effectively it's kind of the same thing. But I mean, I just don't eat when I'm not hungry. And like if I eat a big breakfast, like this morning I had, this may shock some of your audience, but I had about 2 kilos of beef for breakfast. And I'm not hungry, believe it or not. And I probably won't be hungry again until tomorrow. And so that's kind of an intermittent fast. But I'm not sitting there with a stopwatch and saying, oh, I can't eat until exactly 6:45 p.m. because I won't be outside of my window. I don't really care about that. I'm just like, if I'm hungry, if I got really hungry later today, I'd probably eat again. I mean, I know it would, so I don't really concern myself. But I think the diet lends itself to an infrequent meal pattern, particularly if you eat, if you eat enough food.
Yeah. So you basically listen to your body, right? Whenever you're hungry, you just eat, which is the right
Yeah,
thing
I mean,
to
I
do.
do like every other wild species on the planet does.
Yeah.
I've never seen a zebra or a wildebeest or bird out there with a stopwatch or an app or a Fitbit or anything of those things. They don't need those things, and they do just fine. And I think humans, crazily enough, are animals too. And I think when we're eating a species appropriate diet, I think that makes sense.
Yeah, of course. Do, so you mentioned that you had 2 kilograms of beef this morning. What other meats do you tend to eat? Because you hear a lot of this, that red meat is not that great for you, right? If you eat a lot of it, you shouldn't eat a lot of it. Do you only eat red meats a lot, or what kind of meats do you generally go to?
I eat a lot of red meat. That is probably makes up 95% of my diet. I mean, there'll be phases where I'll go a couple months where I'll eat some fish and I'll throw some eggs in there, and I might throw some pork. I don't eat a lot. Tend not to eat a lot of chicken. I don't find it particularly appealing anymore. But I would push back on the red meat is unhealthy and bad for you. I don't think the evidence supports that. But
Mm.
I find that, and I think many people that do this diet come to realize that ruminant meat, an animal, a grazing animal, particularly a large one that has enough fat content, is really what appeals to you most. And I think that goes back to, again, our evolutionary background where, we were hunting, and, the most effective and efficient way to hunt was to kill a large animal.
Mm.
And we knew how to do that. I mean, it's clear going back to Homo erectus. I mean, 1.5 million years ago, they had spears and they figured out how to take down mammoths and elephants and mastodons and they were very fatty animals, red meat animals with a lot of fat on them. And that's what I think helped us to evolve our brain. And I think there's quite a bit of evidence that supports that. And so I think when you contrast that to how much energy would it take for me to hunt birds and how much food would I get? It's hard to kill a bird with a spear. I mean, it really is. I mean, I'm not saying you can't do it, but the amount of work and effort to get the same amount of meat from hunting birds or even gathering berries is just enormous compared to what it takes to, you might spend a half a day killing a big elephant and butchering it and dragging it back, or eating, moving your camp near the elephant carcass and just eating there for, the next several months, relative to, spending, 4, 5, 6 hours a day, every day, gathering berries and hunting birds, or even small, gazelle. So I think that's where we started. And I think that's what you find when you start going to a meat only diet. The vast majority of people, they definitely develop, they find out that their body really responds well to large animals, red meat animals, beef, elk, things like that, or lamb, I think is another good one, that I think largely isn't consistent with our evolution.
Yeah. No. Yeah, like I think that a lot of people, what they do is they hear one thing, like for example, red meat is not good for you, and they go with it. It's harder for a lot of people to actually dive deep into the research. So yeah, I think it's important to actually research it before, making up your mind in thinking that red meat is not good or is good. Um, you touched on earlier that obviously you're a high level athlete as well. Um, so you said that you saw a huge improvement once you went onto this diet and you started to break more records and started to win more. Is that correct?
Yes. Like I said, that's in the context of weightlifting, concept two rowing, just general, the way I felt, the way I recovered. I found that I recovered much better. I'm in my 54. I'm in my 50s. I still train extremely um, aggressively pretty much every day. I just started doing jujitsu. That's the newest thing I just started with. So that's something that I'm added to the sort of the sports background.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I was able to break work. I saw about a 10% increase in my power output, which is in somebody that's been training for 40 years. I wasn't new. I mean, that's a huge increase. 10% is a monstrous increase. And I was already, like I said, when it came to that concept too, I was already the American record holder, on a ketogenic diet. And then I went on a carnivore diet and I literally blew away my previous scores as an older athlete, older than I was at 49. Like for instance, 500 meters at 49, I think I rode 117.7 or something like that, set an American record. And then at 50, I got that down to 114.5. And that was about a 10% increase in power output, wattage output, as I got older, which I thought was quite interesting.
Yeah. No, I love that you're starting to get into jiu-jitsu as well. I do jiu-jitsu myself. I'm a blue belt
Okay.
at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it so much, but that's amazing. But yeah, are you thinking of competing or anything like that, or are you just thinking?
Yeah, definitely. I'd like to do, obviously I compete within my age class and belt class for that. And so I know I'm training with one of the mixed martial art. He was a former world champion in Bellator, and he's a black belt jiu-jitsu guy. But really, he's on the carnivore diet. He's won his last fight as an MMA guy on a carnivore diet, and he's doing his next one as a carnivore. And so, like I said, obviously, you got a lot to learn and a long way to go. And I'm going to be stronger. I'll be fit, relative to probably a lot of people in my age group. At 50, I'll be 55. Now, again, technique will come into a role. I mean, I can use strength to your advantage, but you got to know when to use it, basically. Not to let it be a disadvantage to you. And so it's just kind of figuring out. And like I said, I'm very much studying and learning the techniques and trying to appreciate the leverages and the the positional thoughts behind this, and not just relying on strength, but knowing that you have it in your back pocket is is
Yeah,
not a bad thing. It's never a bad thing to be strong.
of course. Yeah. No, like just fit for your age, the shape you're in. You look so good. I don't know, just your shape looks incredible. So it's amazing to see, you know, you can see that there are benefits to it for sure. And what I'll do, I'll leave all of the links down below for your company, for your book, The Carnivore Diet as well. I think that's going to be my next read now for Audible. Is it on Audible?
I don't believe it's on Audible yet. It's only on, it's on Kindle. I know you can get the electronic version. There's not an audio version out yet. I know the publishers do that. We're getting some translations into other languages. I know for some, it got translated into German and Hungarian first, which I thought was kind of an odd mix. I'm waiting for I thought they might do Spanish and French or something like that before they got into Hungarian, but I guess that's just the way the publishing works. So,
Yeah.
but not on, unfortunately not on Audible yet.
Yeah, that's fine. No worries. Yeah. Yeah, no, thank you so much, Shawn. I really appreciate your time. You know, honestly, just I've learned so much just listening to you, and I'm definitely gonna look into this a lot. And you know, I might actually give it a go for like a month or so, and I'll get back in contact with you, let you know how I feel.
Sure, sure. Be love to hear about it. Yeah, like I said, I tell most people it's about 3 months is what I like to see people try. Give it about 3 month try, but you know, that's some people just give it a month, see how you're doing. If you feel good, keep going for another 2 months, and then you can kind of see, you know, what you think.
Of
It'll
course,
be
yeah.
interesting, you know, you know, like I said, a lot of people seem to think you can't do MMA or jujitsu with it. I've not had any, you know, again, I'm very limited in how much I've done, but I've not had any issues up to this point. You know, the only real issues for me is trying to get people off you so you can breathe. You know, you know, that's just a skill thing. But as far as being able to do the rolling and the long workouts, I haven't had any trouble at all with it. So
Oh, that's brilliant. Yeah, yeah. And Joe Rogan does jiu-jitsu as well. So, you
yeah.
know, I'm sure that he's finding it good with the carnivore diet as well. So yeah, that's fine. But yeah, no, thank you so much, Shawn. I really appreciate your time, honestly. And like I said, I'll leave all Shawn's social media down below, guys, if you want to go and check him out. Honestly, this guy is incredible, and for your age as well, you know, the things you do is amazing.
Well, I think it just, if anybody just stays with it, you know, it's just stay consistent and, you know, take care of yourself, and, you know, hopefully you can enjoy life for a long period of time.
Of course. Yeah. Thank you, Shawn. I appreciate it.
Okay, Murat, thank you very much.